Okay, guys, I've had a lot of you reach out to me about this potential leak, or pretty much a leak that happened that was via 4chan, which usually 4chan you don't pay attention to, but this time they got it right, because as of 2/24/2023, so that's when this post went up, they talked about everything that was pretty much in the Pokemon Presents for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They nailed so many things that was not leaked beforehand, so I wanted to go over this. Now, this comes from Centroleaks. It was on Twitter, but the post is on 4chan, so I want to read off this. And once again, this post that I'm reading from, apparently, based off of this, it was verified that it was released on 2/24/2023. So that was last Friday, well before the Pokemon Presents that went down on the 27th. And it says, I am a programmer at a Pokemon outsourcing company. My English is very poor, so I used Machine Translate to complete this post. The theme of the DLC is Hidden Treasure of Area Zero and Hexagon. Version 1.2.0 includes dressable clothes as reward for DLC purchasers. Will include the two Pokemon that they talked about. I'll have it listed here. I can't say their names correctly. These are Paradox Suicune and Paradox that Pokemon. Also, they put out the types as well in terms of what they ended up being. A mystery Pokemon with the green mask, which we saw. The special Terrestrial appearance as well. The third legendary Pokemon is a large blue turtle. Now, here is the juicy part and what they had to say here that's got me thinking all sorts of things. We are working on a graphics enhancement patch for the new Nintendo Switch models that will be released alongside DLC 2. The new Nintendo Switch models that will be released alongside DLC 2. So what does that mean? Does that mean a graphical bump model? Does that mean the next generation of Switch? Does that mean that there's new Nintendo Switch models that are coming out for, like, let's just say Pokemon, and they're working on a graphics patch just to update things for the Switch? I mean, there's so many different things here, but many people are taking it as this because remember, he says that his English is bad. So that's the reason why I'm theorizing on everything that he could be meaning, or this person could be saying here. But this person had information. There's no way that you get everything that he got here right. Pretty much everything with what they talked about with the Pokemon Presents when it comes to the DLC and the Pokemon that they talked about. There's no way that he would have known that if he didn't have some inside information. But there's always the mix-up here, right? Did he put out some correct information alongside some false information in order to cover his tracks? And why would he say, I'm a programmer at a Pokemon outsourcing company? That could easily whittle it down to who this person is as well. So there's a lot of sketch stuff just in general about this post. That could even be, hey, I'm trying to mislead them on actually who I am. I think that's definitely something where he's trying to mislead people to who he actually is, because once again, if you're an outsourcer, they can find out who you are, or they can really narrow it down when it comes down to it, because you also say your English is very poor, so that narrows it down even more in terms of things. So I'm pretty sure he said this, or they said this, to essentially throw them off the track of who put this out there. Obviously, this person was a leaker, or is somebody that's on the inside, or knew something about this, but that last part is definitely the most interesting. And I'm going to read it one more time just so we can all kind of understand. We are working on a graphics enhancement patch for the new Nintendo Switch models that'll be released alongside DLC 2. So now we know about the DLC 2, the Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. Obviously, he nailed that with the Area Zero. He even said Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. He got that in quotations. That's how I know this person was correct on that, or at least that information was. But he talked about the rest of this stuff, and it's hard to ignore here. So very interesting when it comes down to it. So the second part of the game will have graphical enhancements for that for new Nintendo Switch models. Once again, that can be interpreted in so many different types of ways, because you can just think about it like, okay, well, his English isn't great. What does he mean? New Nintendo Switch models in terms of the actual like new Pokemon models, like let's say the Nintendo Switch OLED, and yet they did a graphics bump for that and there's a patch for that. Or let's just say there's a new actual Nintendo Switch model. Once again, there are multiple different ways to interpret what he had to say here, but it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how it turns out. But once again, don't take this as 100%, but it definitely seems like there is something up here when it comes to the Pokemon Company and Nintendo and what they're going to be doing with this game. Remember, they also didn't announce any new Pokemon game for this year. All they announced was the DLC. They didn't announce any other new Pokemon game, which it still could come, but that does seem like they are focusing on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and the DLC and what's going to happen. So that could lead to be some more truth in terms of what this person is saying, but you can't sit here and nail all of that stuff with quotations in terms of the Pokemon, the actual name of the DLC, without being someone that has some more information on something. But exactly how it's going to play out and what's going to happen is a whole other thing. But I have to sit here and say this is more probable than not, based on him getting this right on February 24th, 2023. So what do you guys think about that? And of course, we're going to talk about the actual DLC because we do have some more information on that, so I wanted to go over it for those who missed out. So yes, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the hidden treasure of Area Zero. We got the part 1, the teal mask, due out this fall. So once again, it lines up with what he had to say as well. So here are the details. Players can use their current save data from Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet to continue their adventure in the hidden treasure of Area Zero. In this new downloadable content, players will be leaving the Paldea region, the setting of Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. In part 1, the Teal Mask, a school trip will take players to the land of Kitakami, where they will be joining an outdoor study program held jointly between their academy and another school. In part 2, the Indigo Disc, players will be traveling to Blueberry Academy, a sister school of their own academy, as exchange students. While this tale is split into 2 parts, they link together to tell a connected story. In part 1, the Teal Mask, players will be chosen to take part in a school trip that is held each year in collaboration with another school. They'll be taken to the land of Kitakami, where a great mountain towers over the land and the people live at its base. It is a place of tranquil nature expanses featuring rice paddies and apple orchards. The trip seems to coincide with the festival regularly held in the village Kitakami during this season, so the village is bustling with various street vendors and stalls. Players will meet new friends and Pokemon as they unravel the mysteries behind the folk tales that have been passed down in this land. Now, in part 1, the Teal Mask, and part 2, the Indigo Disc, players will be able to encounter over 230 familiar Pokemon that have been found living in other regions but had not appeared in Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. This includes Pokemon that players will be able to bring to their games via Pokemon Home or those received in trades. Players will also encounter new legendary Pokemon. I want to talk about this because something actually came up as I was reading this and I thought about it and I'm thinking, wait a minute. The whole time that they showed off this DLC, it was not any gameplay. And that was one of the things that I was saying, well, where's the gameplay at? They didn't show anything. Does that actually line up with this leak here when it comes down to it? The reason why they didn't show anything is because there is a big graphics boost over what we've seen in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, is because they're still developing it and it's going to look much better than what we saw. It just seems like everything is falling into place. The puzzle pieces here, it was almost like a light bulb. As I was reading this, I thought to myself, I'm like, wait a minute. They didn't show anything. Usually they'll show something if they have some DLC. From what I remember, if they talk about DLC, they'll have a trailer where they show some parts of it. I thought they did that with like the Isle of Armor and all that. Maybe they didn't back then. I can't remember. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, if they've got DLC, obviously they'd show something. But maybe that's the reason why they didn't show anything, because there is going to be a graphical bump, whether there is a patch and they get that done on the regular Switch or whatever the case is, or there is a new model, although it says new models, but once again, it's hard to interpret new models of Nintendo Switches, like we get a new model of like a variation of a Nintendo Switch OLED, or actual new model of a Nintendo Switch, like a Switch 2, a Switch Pro. We don't really know, right? It's not 100% clear because the person's English isn't perfect, like they said, but there's improvements coming. Like there's something coming when it comes down to it. So that's something to look forward to, because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet needs it. So this is going to be incredibly interesting to see how all of 2023 plays out. There are a lot of unknowns, and I'm looking forward to this DLC, especially if everything works out the way that it seems like it's going to. The 230 Pokemon, familiar ones coming back in, that's awesome. Pokemon home support, that's awesome as well. I didn't love the Pokemon Presents, too much mobile stuff and sleep and all that for me, but at the same time, man, if all of this stuff works out the way that, it looks like it will, I can kind of understand why they didn't show more when it comes to this DLC here, but we'll see exactly how everything turns out. But yes, things are looking very interesting. But speaking of another game that looks very interesting, we do have a release date in the West for the old school action RPG Trinity Trigger. Yes, May 16th. Action RPG Trinity Trigger, PS5, PS4, Nintendo Switch in the West, May 16th. Publishers Xseed and Marvelous Europe has announced. Now, published by Furyu and developed by 3 Rings, Trinity Trigger first launched in Japan September 15, 2022. So, man, that was a while ago, right? They took a while for the localization. Now, in North America, the game will be available digitally for $49.99 and physically via the Day 1 edition for all 3 platforms for $59.99. Now, essentially what this game is, I've talked about it quite a bit. It's like an old school action RPG. If you played Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, those type of games, that is what you're going to get here with some twists and some turns. It's also got local multiplayer as well, like old school Secret of Mana, old school Seiken Densetsu, all of that stuff, right? So if you're into those type of games, then Trinity Trigger might be a game for you to check out in May. And I think that they probably wanted to avoid a lot of the RPG death row that is happening, because this game, it's going to be like a switch or bust game here in the West. Like PS4 and PS5, people aren't going to buy it on that when it comes down to it. So this is a switch or bust type of game, right? At least in the West it is. So if you're looking at it, Fire Emblem, Octopath Traveler 2, you've also got Atelier. There are a number of big RPGs that are coming out in the first number of months. So it's good to just skip all of those. But I think the biggest problem that they run into here, and I know that they're different types of games, but May 16th, that is a number of days after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That is a horrible release date for this game, like especially because Switch is going to be your main platform for this title. That is a horrible release date. Tears of the Kingdom comes out on May 12th, so that is Friday, May 12th. Then this game comes out the following Tuesday. People are probably going to be no-lifing Tears of the Kingdom all the way through the rest of May. I think they probably should have came out a little bit sooner if they could have, probably April. Put it next to the Mega Man Battle Network collection type of games, but hey, it is what it is. I'll still check it out, but man, that is rough to follow the big show that is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom so close to it as well. But hey, once again, different types of games. There might be some people that aren't interested in Tears of the Kingdom that can pick up this game. But speaking of RPGs, let's talk about Octopath Traveler 2. Now, my special edition still has not came in at this point, but it's coming soon, apparently. I reached out. Hopefully it's coming soon. Octopath Traveler 2. Some people are saying that this game is underperforming. Shout out to my girl JCat. She talked about it on Twitter, and she discussed the COMG charts in Japan and how it's not quite up to where it was with Octopath Traveler 1. So it's looking around maybe 50K or so for the game across multiple platforms, PS4, PS5, and also Nintendo Switch. And I can understand maybe a little bit of that. Obviously, it launched in a much more competitive atmosphere with games. I mean, especially if you're looking at 2018 compared to 2023, goodness gracious. 2018 PS4 is obviously dwindling, Switch is rising, but there isn't as much for the systems out. and then you wait this long for an HD 2D, 5 years for a sequel. I mean, that's obviously a long time to wait for this type of game. So I can understand maybe there being a dip. You don't have all the exclusive marketing when it comes like to the hype of Switch only that Nintendo will put on the emphasis of that. Obviously, Sony almost did not care at all about this game because Octopath Traveler 1 isn't on there. It's the second game, so I think the fans aren't really going to be as excited as maybe Switch owners would be or PC owners would be because they got the first game. So it's in a tough spot at this point. However, there is some positives, and I think that with this game, word of mouth and later sales are going to be big for this game. Now on Amazon, it is moving up the charts here. It's actually all the way up to number 2 on best sellers for new releases, if you don't count the hardware and also like controllers and stuff like that. If you just go based off of video games, it's actually number 2. Kirby is number 1. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which launched at the same time. So there's also that. You have to factor that in, that Kirby's huge in Japan, launching on the same day. That is rough. That's the reason why I tell you, got the heck out of February. You got Kirby and Octopath, that's tough, especially Kirby. Kirby's a lot more popular now, you know, than it's ever been. So Kirby definitely did really good in Japan, especially for a Nintendo Wii remaster. But Octopath is number 2 on the US bestsellers in Amazon, so it's doing okay. Now we're gonna have to wait and see exactly how things play out, but I do think maybe once price drops hit a little bit, once the year kind of goes on, there's a little bit more of a lull with RPGs and with games, probably summer to fallish. I think Octopath 2 shines with some discounts down to like $40 or $50, so I think that's going to happen there. But overall, I think the Octopath is going to be fine, but it does seem like there could be a little bit of a dip in Japan at least. But once again, we don't have digital sales numbers, so could the ratio be going up higher compared to back in 2018? That could also be a big factor into this, especially with the smaller file size of Octopath. So we'll see. Once again, I do think that it's going to be interesting just to see how everything plays out. But I'm looking forward to playing the game. It is awesome. The demo is fantastic. Go out there and pick up Octopath Traveler 2. It is a great RPG on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, PS4, PC, wherever you get it at. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please check out some of my other content if you missed it for the past weekend. We discussed a lot of things like a new Castlevania game. We also discussed Hogwarts Legacy, another big RPG coming to Switch soon here. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.